Howdy y'all, got some bench work today. Dad's out here and we're waiting for the paint to dry. Rather than watch it dry, I think we're going to work on our brake bands. So we got some pads to rivet on here and hopefully get these done. We're a little bit nervous about this step, but I think I got it figured out. And I got some flat point bits so that we can countersink where the rivets go in. And I've got some punches here. It should, I think, be the right taper to expand those rivets before we press them in the rest of the way. Right now I'm putting in the bolts. These are they got a square shank in them right there. And then I bought new lock washers, like I said I was going to do, for all the internal components, because I don't want to get into here again. I painted the bands with some high temp caliper paint, probably an unnecessary step, but this one was very rusty and so was this one. It'll at least help prevent it from if it gets any moisture in there underneath the pads in the future. So these are the new pads. They're kind of a woven cloth-like material. These remind me, they're a lot similar to the ones we put on our John Deere D. And I have the old ones right here that we're going to use for a pattern to match. And you can see where they dished out where these holes go here for these bolt heads. Kind of a pan head. And that's the one with the square shank. These should sit on here like so. Just like that. There are a lot of nicks in here from something previously. Looks like somebody pounded on it or hit it with something. Maybe to break it loose, who knows. I'm going to tighten this up while Dad's making a pattern out of one of the old pads.
Think that'll work?
It should. We determined that they're all virtually the same, except for the ones with the divot in the back to accommodate for the bolt heads, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how we're gonna divot this stuff out. It looks very grainy. I think I over-tightened one. I over-tightened one and broke it. I found one of these, kind of a pan head, that should fit in there where I broke that bolt. Where was it? There we go. Gonna just take a little bit and grind off the top and it should work fine. Dad's making that bolt over there that'll work, and it has a screw slot in it so I can hold it from the other side since it doesn't have the square shank like these others. But earlier he was working on divoting these out so that they'll match over those bolts. Like so. And I think he got it all figured out. And we got this ground down just enough that it'll kind of match these other ones. And I can still get a screwdriver in there to hold it.
You know what? Let me go. I need to alter this up. Yeah, see, I need to be more at the top.
Just a little bit up further. They're only an 1/8 inch from the top on that one.
See there?
Yeah, see how that lines up with the end of that?
Okay, I know how to fix it. Whatever that is, it says it's a number 10 drill on the chart there. So
that's what we're going to drill the main part through.
Boy, that's a sharp one.
And then to countersink it from the other side, this is a 3/8, but I got a flat point bit. We're measuring how deep these are countersunk on the old ones, just for kind of a comparison.
This one is pretty new. Let me try another one. Yeah. This one looks really good here, don't it?
They all look pretty good, but they're just impregnated with oil.
$175, $160. I think if we go like
165.
No, like let's try 150.
150
or 160.
Okay.
In depth, or 155.
No, that'll work.
Whoa.
That won't work.
See how it took off?
Yeah.
It took off on me. Let's do this. That's why I wish we could do them by hand. I don't think I went through, but it grabbed, baby. It grabbed good. I'm gonna have to be very, very ginger.
I can see if I can find an old brace. Of course, we don't have room to work a brace inside there.
No. Well, we can take the pad out and do them where we have more control.
Yeah, now that we got them marked.
You know,
what if we put that in a drill press and set the depth?
Yes, that's what we need to do.
Let's do that.
Yeah, that way we can't overdo it.
Yeah.
Important thing is to get it nice and flat, and it's hard to do on this curve. Does that look centered pretty well?
Yeah.
Okay, there's up against our stop. Let's see what we got on that one. Oh yeah, look at there. That looks really good. Here, you can read the dial. What do you got?
60. 62-ish.
Oh, that's perfect. We're going to go with that.
Yep.
Right there.
We set up this drill so that they will only drill so deep. And we got it set up about perfect now. It drills almost like a hardwood.
Like metal, yeah.
But it's got impregnated metal in it.
55, 54, that's good.
Okay.
We're not going to, it isn't precision like metal.
No.
So here you go, there's one.
All right. The setup, we were just using this grinding stone to kind of grind these out in here. That's how deep the rivet goes through, and that's about how deep it's countersunk. I think it'll work perfect. Well, I attempted to do this with my air hammer, and it kind of just laid over the rivet, and then I hit it with that punch, and that laid it over the rest of the way, and it's not tight, and not going to work right, so I think I found the correct die that I can put in the air hammer, and we can bucket on this punch over here still, and do it correctly. Our strategy for bucking these rivets didn't really quite work out perfectly, so I ended up buying a tool that is purpose-built for this and should work just fine. And it's got the correct punches to get them started and bend them over correctly, and I'm going to use that. Dad has all these drilled out and drilled out to the correct depth, and then he's labeled each one with a corresponding letter per their position here on the bands. And when he was working with this, he picked up the bands and some of these bolts broke loose, and they were rusted when I took them apart. They broke, they fell right out. So I don't know why I didn't sooner. I went ahead and bought new ones, so I'm going to get those swapped out and start riveting these bands back together. For anybody that's going to want to know, I got these brake relining kits from General Gear up in Idaho. These bolts are a 3/4 inch long, 1/4 thread carriage bolt. This punch here to set the rivets with, I found this on Amazon. It's got a piece here to buck the bottom of them, and kind of looks like a starter punch, a machine punch to do the rivets at the top. It's about $55. This is the same one they use on farmalls, John Deere's, pretty much anything that has rivets with brake bands. And plain old, I did use grade 8 black oxide lock washers and just 1/4 nuts. And these are grade 8 as well. I definitely reverted back to my get her done attitude, and we got a job to do ways with this one. And I should have just got the bolts, because thank goodness this failed before we put it together and stuck it back in the machine, because I would really have hated for one of these to break like it did when we were working on it and fall off in that brake compartment, or even worse, get in the brake band. These look like they're a little bit longer. Hopefully that won't interfere. Worst case scenario, I can grind the ends of them off. They are a smidge longer. Looks like about 1/8 of an inch. I do feel a lot better about this now. I got fresh new bolts and everything, so now it's time to start riveting on the pads. So I've clamped these together because these pads don't quite match the curvature of these bands. And I'm going to start in the middle and work my way outward, just so I don't have any weird binds in them. These rivets are going to end up, I don't know, 1/8 inch or more below the surface, which is pretty close to what the old ones were. I'm a little nervous because I haven't really done it before, but I did figure out this little tool, and it should work perfectly. So it has a different sized, so that we can buck the rivets. It fits in there very nicely and very snug. Probably going to have to adjust the vise, but let's see if this will work. There we go. I think I'll adjust the vise. I've got this sitting out here a little far. I don't know how well it's going to handle the... When I hammer on it, I'll have to keep the band straight when I hammer on it, but it's really solid on the other side of the rivet, so let's give it a try and see what it does. And it's not holding it. So I'm going to have to resituate my vise and try this a little differently. So I've got it set up underneath of there. There's the rivet. I don't know if you can see that on camera. It's pretty small. I'll get you a detailed shot of before and after. Just a minute. See if my vise holds this time. Yeah. It's mushrooming. It's going to take a lot harder of a hit. It's still moving my jig. So I might have to change things around again. It's working. It's definitely mushrooming those out nice. Get the focus right there. And there's the other side I haven't worked on yet. I need to get this a little more stable so it won't move in my vise. And I think we'll be in business. Well, I'm not a bright man, but I just realized this is made to go in a vise. There's a little lip here, so I can set it in here and it won't do that. Much better, much better. That is acceptable. Swap the clamp around to the other side and I'll give this one a go. It takes a fair amount of hits and a fair amount of energy to actually mushroom those rivets nicely, but this is really turning out quite well. I think we're finally doing it correctly. I took the clamp off and those two rivets are really holding nicely. That one I got a little bit carried away with, but it's still holding nice. It's important to keep it straight, but that one turned out beautifully. I got a lot to do. I'm going to spare you all having to watch it. With the magic of editing, these are done. These turned out really well. Very nice, very tight. And this one I got a little bit messed up because this was interfering with this on my jig. I couldn't get a good straight angle on it. Might give it another whack or two just for good measure. It's going to hold. All of them are holding nicely. Everything's sunk in there. Nothing's loose. I can't wiggle any of them back and forth. And it really worked good to put this punch in this vise. You back the punch up here. It's a flat nose punch. Exactly the same size as the base of the rivets. And it will back them up perfectly. And it's doing a nice job at these ones where I have interference and I can't get the head of this jig in there. And quite frankly, I just used the same punch and it's working perfectly. On another note, I would definitely put all of your rivets in here before you start punching things in. The pad shifts and changes a little bit, and you want to make sure that it keeps everything lined up. You might lose one might fall out here and there, but it'll still keep the base of it in where you need it to be. I'm finding about 3 good whacks with the punch and the hammer are all it takes to get these mushroom nice. All the rivets are done in here. These ones here in between these bolts that have the kind of the carriage bolt that sticks out the top, they don't buck as tight as the rest of these, but overall looks pretty good. Before I start this segment, I gotta preface it that I am not an expert on D4s. All I know is I got a service manual, some trial and error, and I've took it apart. But I'm gonna show you at least how I think that you adjust the brakes on a D4. So I got the brake spans all together. They're all riveted nice and tight. And I wanted to test fit this on here anyway. These bolts are a little too long, and I'm really afraid they're going to hang up and interfere. So before we actually set the clutches in here, I'm going to take this over on the grinder or a angle grinder and just kind of nip those off so they're good and out of the way. And I've just got this drum on here for demonstration purposes only. When you open up the inspection cover on the rear end, and yes, you do have to take the seat off and actually take quite a few things to get them out of your way. Trust me, it helps. You'll find these sticking up in here, and these are your adjusters for your brakes. It's a 9/16 socket that will fit on there, and they are just kind of a press fit. There's a spring that holds it in there and keeps it adjusted, similar to maybe drum brakes on a car. There's a ball socket on the bottom of here that rotates inside the brake. This screws on to this, which attaches to your pedal. So this is where you do your adjustments for your brakes. And this is what it looks like when it's screwed onto there and not in the brake band. So this is how you will adjust it. I highly recommend finding a service book for the D4. There's some aftermarket ones. They're not that expensive. They're very decent books, and they have all the same information that's in the original ones. Up here on this picture, you can kind of see how that threads into that mechanism. There's a pin that goes through here that all of it ties into, which is right here. And that pin goes through right there. We got it plugged up for the paint. But that's what hinges the whole mechanism. On the bottom side of your D4, you'll find some bolts similar to this. And they have a square head. Again, this is a 9/16 and a lock nut on them. These are damaged, and we're replacing them because they rusted right here on the threads. But for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to put it in here. What these bolts do is just kind of take the slack out of the bottom of the brake band so that it's reasonably close when you hit the brakes. It stays in adjustment. And there's one on each side. That one's just got a bolt in there just to plug up the hole. And we could not find original ones anywhere. So Dad actually made one out of a grade 8 bolt that I bought. Now these brakes are designed to be maintained without removing this top cover. So just like is shown in the book, the brakes on this tractor are designed to be adjusted, maintained, and replaced through these inspection holes back here, which we have taped up at the moment for our paint jobs. But you have to disconnect the pins and the main pin that comes out of here. That can be pulled out, and then you take the bands apart here, and you can rotate this and slide them out of these inspection holes. And you can't really see it here, but there's access plates right here, right above where this pins, so you can take this apart through those access holes. It's not the easiest job in the world, but it is possible. And I've removed this adjustment bolt just so you can see the flange that's on the bottom of here and how it rides in that socket there. This spring-loaded clip keeps it adjusted because it sits on one of these flat parts on this socket wherever you adjust it. And according to the book, keep the brakes adjusted just tight enough so that the tractor will turn correctly without the steering clutch. When the steering clutch is released and the brake pedal is depressed about 3 to 4 inches. And it tells you how to get to them. Remove the inspection plate, which sits about right here. turn the adjusting nut in a clockwise direction to tighten the brakes. So this nut, turn it clockwise. A spring mounted on the tang of the brake band engages the adjustment nut at each turn, 1/6 turn. So that's 6-sided nut, and that's that spring flange I was just talking about. The adjusting nut should be turned sufficiently each time to allow the spring to seat firmly in place. So when you turn this thing, make sure that it's virtually pretty much square with that spring so it doesn't hang up and come out of adjustment. It says to loosen the lock nut on the support screw under the bottom of the tractor transmission. That's where we were just a minute ago. We were underneath, I was showing you. And apply the brake to draw the brake band tightly around the drum and basically squeeze this in. Turn the support screw up tight against the band and then back off 1 1/2 turns and tighten the lock nut. So that's the one underneath. This screw supports the brake band and maintains the correct clearance between the lining and the drum. Like I was saying, you want it close enough that they react when you hit the brakes, but not close enough that they sit there and rub while you're working. And should be entirely free from the drum when the pedal is in and released position. There's your brake adjustment for the D4. There's the pads replacement. I hope this helps somebody out. There's other great videos online. Pacific Northwest Hillbilly has a few, of course Squatch. I check them all out. All in all, a good day. We got a lot done, and I got some explaining done. So I do want to thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.